Today on this episode of The Brain Surgeon's Take, we will be discussing the University of Miami future directions with the president of the University of Miami, Dr. Julio Frenk. Learn how one of the top private universities in the country is evolving and adapting to our rapidly changing society and maintaining its position as a global leader in higher education. Much more on this podcast episode. Welcome back, everyone. Here's my take on President Julio Frenk. He is a visionary leader who has transformed the University of Miami into a premier destination for higher learning. One of President Frenk's greatest strengths is his vast experience at various institutions and administrative positions, allowing him to incorporate multiple strategies at the University of Miami for continual improvement. Prior to joining UM, President Frenk served as Dean of the Harvard School of Public Health and Professor of Public Health at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. He was also Minister of Health of Mexico and Founding Director General of the National Institute of Public Health in Mexico, Executive Director at the WHO, and Senior Fellow in the Global Health Program of the Gates Foundation. As you will see in this podcast, these domestic and international experiences have given President Frenk a progressive mentality and drive to always achieve excellence. As a University of Miami faculty member, I truly enjoyed this interview and learning about the cutting-edge initiatives occurring throughout the institution. After speaking with President Frenk, it is clear that UM is not only at the forefront of higher education, but also a role model for other colleges across the nation. Listen up as we discuss the University of Miami future directions. Check it out. Hey, Dr. Frenk, how are you?
I'm good, Ricardo. Thank you very much.
Well, listen, we are very excited to hear from you today. As an employee here at the university, it's a very exciting time, and your leadership has been outstanding. So I look forward to hearing about UM and what the future directions are.
Yes, it is an exciting time at the university. We're approaching our centennial, our first 100 years. That will happen in April of 2025. In fact, I have a little countdown clock here on my desk, and I can tell you that it's exactly 515 days before the actual anniversary, 100th anniversary of the university. But more importantly, we've developed a strategic plan, a 10-year strategic plan. We're starting year 9, so we have this a little bit less than a couple of years to finalize it. And there's very exciting initiatives, many of which are coming to fruition right now, both in our educational innovation, our research enterprise, and of course, the healthcare we provide through our academic health system, UHealth.
Yeah, no, it should be, there's so many different facets that you guys are pushing ahead. What would you say are your top 3 goals for 2024?
So, first of all, we want to consolidate our research foundation. The university was admitted on June 1st of this year, of 2023. Was admitted as a member of the Association of American Universities. This is the top echelon of research universities in the United States, founded at the beginning of the 20th century. It is comprised of only 69 universities in the United States out of the more than 4,000 that constitute the whole universe of higher education. So it is really the most selective and accomplished research universities. And the fact that the University of Miami was recently invited to join is really a recognition of how much progress we've made on research. So I want to consolidate that. Our vision for research is what we call mission-driven research, by which I mean research that focuses on tackling some of the most complex problems facing humankind. Problems like climate change, or like chronic diseases, or like migration. They're issues that are facing humankind and that we need to use science, both in the natural sciences, the social sciences, and also in the humanities, to understand fully and to be able to develop solutions. So that's number 1 on the research, this idea of mission-driven research. The second one on our educational mission is to lead the education revolution. We are at the threshold, really, of a technological revolution that has finally arrived to education because for whatever reason, education was one of the very few fields of human endeavor that did not experience such a revolution in the 20th century. And compared to medical care or to transportation, almost anything, basically education remained just like it had been, since the invention of the movable type printing press by Gutenberg. But that revolution is happening now. It's happening because of advances in teledelivery, teleeducation, which the pandemic greatly accelerated. It is advancing because it is progressing because of advances in the use of big data analysis to understand learning patterns of individuals. It is moving forward because of potential applications of artificial intelligence, very controversial topic. Some people are scared of what AI could do to education. I think we need to embrace it, and like with other technologies, we need to actually lead the way in developing those technologies and figuring out the best way to apply them. And also other fields like virtual reality and augmented reality, the possibility of really creating global classrooms where one can have in a virtual room people from all over the world converging around important lessons in education. So we're investing heavily on innovation in education to be to lead and not lag in that revolution. We've created something called the new century because we are all about our new century that's starting in 2 years, less than 2 years. The new century education incubator, sorry, and it is an incubator of new ideas. The first thing we've incubated is a pilot 3-year Bachelor of Science in innovation, technology, and design. And we've launched the first cohort. We've just admitted the second one. We're doing very extensive evaluation. It is not that it's shorter because you have less education. It's because it's packaged in a completely different way through immersive experiences from day one. And then lastly, the third area of priority is our academic health system, UHealth. We are the only academic health system in South Florida, and there we continue to strive to be a preeminent health system that's sustainable both from a financial and an environmental sense of the word sustainable, and that really goes at the cutting edge of innovating in treatments and prevention and elevating access to the highest quality of care possible. I think those are the three big areas of focus.
I mean, so exciting. And I can definitely tell you that the healthcare system that you've been supporting has been tremendous. The growth is just exponential. And we'll get into some of the other things you mentioned later on. But what do you think is the single biggest challenge facing at this point? This episode of the Brain Surgeon's Take is brought to you by Vitamin Water. Vitamin water is the ideal way to hydrate, replete your electrolytes, and maintain wellness. I drink vitamin water routinely during the day in order to keep up my energy and focus. Check out vitaminwater.com for more information and use the promo code BrainSurgeonsTake for 20% off your first order.
There's, the pandemic disrupted the entire economy, but I think the two sectors that were most disrupted in the deepest way, in a structural sense, were actually healthcare and higher education, which is exactly where the University of Miami is in those two. Some of the disruptions were good, like the use of telemedicine to improve access to healthcare, or the use of teleeducation to improve access to education. Others were not so positive, and I am particularly afraid that the pandemic accelerated, didn't create, but it accelerated and worsened tendencies to polarization. And I think that's probably our biggest challenge as a university. The polarized environment where people stop listening to each other and where you just listen to those who have already agreed with you and you refuse to engage with people who think differently. And that is exactly contrary to what universities are all about. Universities are about creating an environment where you can debate ideas in a respectful and safe environment. And I think we need to be what I call an exemplary institution. We need to, at the university, embrace values such as the idea that we welcome diverging points of view, and then not just a value statement, but actually behave in a way that sets an example for the larger society of which we are a part. And I think we really need badly in our society, both in the United States but also globally, to develop or recommit to the idea that we can listen to each other respectfully, find points of agreement when that is possible, but even when it's not possible, we can still respect different perspectives. That is the essence of universities. That's the basis through which research progress, science progresses, because there's debate, because there's discussion, but it is done in a constructive, disciplined way. And I think not just for the sake of the future of universities, but for our societies, that is something we need um, to recover and actually strengthen. And universities need to play the leading role in this endeavor.
Yeah, I think if we were to just listen to one another a little bit more respectfully, a lot of the world problems would probably be greatly diminished.
Right.
You had mentioned earlier how elite institutions have a responsibility to not only give back to their community, but also aid in global dilemmas. And we're mentioning, healthcare disparities, global warming, racism, the conflict in Ukraine and the Middle East. How do you as a leader make sure that is involved not only locally in Miami, but also globally?
Yes, I believe that is really an example, a great example of a concept that I like very much. I didn't coin the term, but I use it in my work. And it's the concept of glocal. Everything is simultaneously global and local. So it is local. Take the pandemic of COVID 19, which we just had to face. There's nothing more local than a wet market in a city in China, in Wuhan, selling animals and live and dead animals in conditions of very poor hygiene, promiscuity, everything that fosters the rise of a pandemic virus that then spreads to humans. But that's very local. Immediately, as soon as that virus appears, it becomes a global phenomenon because someone just needs to get on a plane or several planes, and in less than 3 months, it's all over the world. What is more global than a pandemic? Then, what is more global than scientists cooperating across the entire globe in industry, in universities, in government, everyone cooperating to develop a safe and effective vaccine as we did. The brightest point of the pandemic was that cooperation among scientists to deliver a solution to the pandemic. And the vaccine literally saved humanity. But then, what is more local than mobilizing teams of nurses and doctors and other health professionals to vaccinate in the local community the people so that that scientific breakthrough actually benefits people? So we move from the local to the global, back to the local constantly. And this is how I think of the university. We're deeply rooted in our community, but at the same time, by the nature of the topics we study, we research on, we're intrinsically global. We have one of the leading climate science groups in the world at our Rosenstiel School of Marine and Atmospheric and Earth Sciences. That's a global problem, which is also local. Miami happens to be ground zero for the effects of climate change in rising sea levels, in extreme weather events, in the changing ecology of vector-borne diseases. This is a very local problem. It is also global at the same time. And we contribute to the science that helps us understand and the solutions on the ground. Or, as you said, common diseases that rapidly become globalized. And it's not just infections. The pandemic of chronic non-communicable diseases is equally a global phenomenon. Someone has coined, for example, in the case of obesity, the term globicity, because it is linked to the spread of uh, patterns of nutrition and food consumption. It is spread to global industries of junk food that foster that, to lifestyles of sedentary lifestyles. It is truly a global phenomenon. So I think of us, as I said, as the example of this concept of local, being both connected to our local community, devoted to servicing our community, while at the same time tackling global issues, and then embracing students and faculty from all over the world. We have faculty and students from more than 100 countries here on our campus. So we're intrinsically global and intrinsically local at the same time.
That's so terrific to see. I know that has a huge impact locally, and we are seeing the impact globally. So I think those two definitely go together. Another issue that's not just isolated to but really across the country is the rising college tuition, which in many times can be prohibitive to excellent students going to the school they want if they don't get the appropriate financial aid. Obviously, that's an issue here in Miami. It's an expensive private school. You guys get the best applicants all over the world. How are you guys addressing the idea of the prohibitive college tuition sometimes?
So, first of all, we are committed to assuring access to every person who can do well, can succeed at the University of Miami. We're committed to a situation, and I made this commitment actually in my inaugural address, where I committed to meeting financial need of students, by which I mean that if you have the capacity to do well and succeed at the University of Miami, the lack of money from you or your family should not be a barrier that deprives you of that opportunity. And that's a very strong value of the university. Now, that doesn't mean that is not, by the way, the same thing as free college. This is meeting 100% of demonstrated financial need, which is our commitment, means that if the whole college experience costs 100 and you can only afford 50, the university will cover the other 50. If you can afford zero, the university will cover 100. If you can afford the 100, the university won't provide any aid. So it's not the same thing as free college. It is meeting that gap between the full cost of attendance and what a family's economic or financial capability is, and closing that gap. And we are getting very close to that. We're actually now meeting 100% of demonstrated need. The next step is that part of that gap is being closed through loans. And we would like to be able to close that gap, but in a debt-free scheme. Now, that requires increasing substantially our scholarships. That's why in our fundraising efforts, which are constantly going on, but right now we have a special campaign for the 100th anniversary of the university, for the centennial, providing more funding for endowed scholarships is our top priority. Now, on the topic of cost, we need also to repeat that the net cost is much lower than what appears. When universities publicize their tuition, the actual cost is substantially lower. For example, in our case, our what we call the discount rate, which is the way we support financial support, our net tuition is 36% less than what you read on the website. So it is also important for high school counselors and applicants to be informed about the net tuition. The tragedy to me, it happens when some students start college, incur the cost of college, and then drop out and don't graduate. Because those students are hit both ways. We do know that if you graduate from college, your lifelong earnings are going to be substantially higher than if you only have a high school. Now, you do have to pay back the loans, but you can do that if you're earning more. The problem is if you just went partially and never got your degree, you have now the burden of that debt without the benefit of the additional earning. And that's something we are determined not to allow to happen. So we're very focused on increasing our 6-year graduation rates. We're high, but not at the as high as we want. We want to continue making sure that not only we admit the best students, but we also guarantee their success which means graduate and be able to have a fulfilling life after graduation, including getting a good job, but not just getting a good job, just realizing your own goals. So that's our commitment, and it's again very based on very strongly held values that universities are the most higher education is the most legitimate vehicle for upward social mobility, and therefore there should be no financial barriers for people who can succeed. There's no point in admitting students who won't succeed. So we are a selective school. We do select a very small proportion of those who apply, but for those who we do admit, we're committed to making this something where financial barriers will not stop you, and something that where you will succeed in graduating and leading a fulfilling life.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are a role model for other institutions because it's such an endemic problem. I mean, just the college tuitions are just skyrocketing across the country. So I'm glad you guys are taking that approach because Miami should be viewed as a role model for that. I want to go back to something you said earlier about artificial intelligence because I think it's such a controversial topic. But AI, and in particular Chat GPT, right? It's altered the way students do their academic endeavors, papers, research. How is dealing with that controversial technology? Because it's not going anywhere. Just like you said, you got to embrace it. But how do you incorporate it and still maintain ethics?
So it is something we've been discussing internally and trying to figure out. At the very beginning, there was a debate among two camps. One camp said, let's ban the use of ChatGPT. Um, but another one, in which I place myself, said, those attitudes to technological innovation have never worked. If they had worked, we would still be, I don't know, writing
Cavemen.
on paper or maybe not even writing, right? I mean, every technological advance has had some positive and negative aspects. And the I think what we need to do is learn how to be masters of technology and not the other way around. And we now are providing courses where we teach students how to use ChatGPT, not to teach or to plagiarize or anything like that, because that's sort of the caricature that's been made of ChatGPT, but to use it intelligently as a great resource. Um, for example, there is a whole methodology to developing queries or questions to ChatGPT and other similar technologies. And mastering that to make full use is something that I think is positive. And AI in general has some potentially very large beneficial applications. I think the arena that's most ripe for beneficial applications is healthcare. So in our academic health system in UHealth, we are now very, very purposefully trying to develop applications of AI. And it is, to enhance diagnostic abilities, to be better at producing therapies. But it's also not just the healthcare part. It is also a lot of the administrative burden that right now falls very often to the doctor or the nurse, for example, in just keeping records. You can mobilize AI to have to be able to listen on a consultation and translate that into an electronic medical record, and thereby release the doctor who, instead of focusing on a screen while the patient is talking to the patient, is looking, is making eye contact, while the AI is actually taking the notes. And that is technology that's already here. Similarly, a lot of back office procedures that add a lot of cost to healthcare can be better carried out by artificial intelligence. And we need to quickly deploy that. Then there's the potential of AI to increase the productivity of the research enterprise, to be able to more quickly identify potential candidates for drug development or other or for diagnostic tools. So the even basic research, I think, can be greatly improved through applications of AI. think of literature reviews that we all have to do as scientists. We need to know what's been written. The potential of using AI to reduce a task that used to take months of graduate students into something that's much more manageable. The examples are multiple. I think there's a huge opportunity both in healthcare, in research applications, and in education, which are the three missions of the University of Miami. So we are embracing it, we're studying it, we're contributing to its development, and we're also making sure that everyone, from our doctors and nurses to our students and researchers, knows how to best use those tools. I like to think of AI as augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence. It's augmented because nothing is artificial. Artificial sounds like it's somehow non-human. Artificial means that humans made it, so it is a human product. So let's use it to augment our biological intelligence through a product of that intelligence, which is AI itself. It is a product of our intelligence. So use it to augment our intelligence.
I mean, I agree 100%. The people who want to ban Chat GPT, I mean, it's not going anywhere. Just like you said, technology's here to stay. You either embrace it or you just get dominated by it. And I think that you guys are definitely approaching it the right way. Speaking of the technology boom and the changing generations, something that's becoming increasingly prevalent across college campuses is mental health issues. And it's always been an issue, but it's certainly more prevalent, and it's becoming more prevalent. What is UM doing to address wellness in its student body?
It is our area of enormous focus. We have a counseling center staffed by first-class professionals. We, every student that needs the service can be seen the same day, and then depending on what is there, then a therapeutic plan or an intervention plan can be developed. We've also enhanced a 24/7 telehealth service for students, especially when there's a crisis. Um, there is a documented increase in anxiety and depression among among young people in general, especially after the pandemic, during and after the pandemic, but in particular among university students. I'm engaged with a number of university groups of universities that are trying to think together how best to tackle this, and it is an area of great focus. But right now, under our team of student affairs, um, we have this counseling center that we have really greatly strengthened. Just last week, we made a presentation to our board of trustees because they are very concerned. They want to make sure that the university can respond to students. My motto here, when it comes to our educational mission, is students first, and it is first of all to provide them with a world-class education, but that has got to be an integral part of the entire educational experience, and it has to be an enriching experience. And if you're feeling isolated or anxious or depressed, that experience is greatly undercut, and it undermines your academic performance. So we got to have this integrative approach to student wellness that is part and parcel of the educational process, and it's a condition for educational success. So we're investing in that. We're expanding accessibility, and we're very focused on assuring that the well-being of our students is our absolutely most sacred duty.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it best. Just the anxiety that goes on amongst young adults is just skyrocketing, and how we can address that and hopefully prevent it as opposed to treating it. That's something that we need to focus on as well. Another very hot topic recently is freedom of speech on college campuses, especially with the current Middle East crisis. How is UM both allowing free speech but avoiding incendiary conflicts?
Yes, we have been blessed to have very responsible student groups and faculty groups as well. We have a wonderful uh, team in student affairs. Our senior vice president for student affairs, Dr. Patricia Whiteley, has been widely regarded by her peers as one of the most, if not the most seasoned, experienced vice president for student affairs in the country. I'm the third president that she serves under. She is really someone, she and her team, who keep their pulse on what's going on. So after the horrific October 7th attacks, I immediately issued a statement to be very clear about our position. Irrespective of how you understand the very complex relationship between Israel and the Palestinian people, you cannot condone terrorist attacks on innocent people, and that was a very clear message. Then we did have, like other campuses, different groups, but we have a very clear policy. The different groups trying to express their perspectives, and we welcome that. We do have a policy. We encourage freedom of speech, freedom of expression. It is one of the top values of a university. But that right to speak freely comes with responsibilities, like every right that we have. And that means there are widely recognized and legally recognized limits to freedom of speech. What's beyond those limits? We do not allow hate speech. We obviously don't allow any form of violence, verbal or physical violence. It is also important to remind people that that Hamas is an officially recognized terrorist organization, designated as those officially designated terrorist organization, designated as such by the State Department and the similar bodies in many other countries. So public displays of support, especially if they're accompanied by implications of the need to exercise violence against a whole group of people, that qualifies as hate speech and is not allowed on our campus. And therefore, we've been very open with our students, and we have avoided some of the confrontations you have seen in other campuses. But we're very close. We're talking to them, and actually, I'm very fortunate that our students really embrace this idea. And we had vigils both from Jewish and Israeli students, which we have a substantial body of Jewish and actual citizens of Israel, both on our faculty and our student body, and also our Palestinian and more broadly Arab and Muslim students. And both of those groups have been able to express their viewpoints in vigils and other forms of demonstration, and all of them have been peaceful and respectful. And we intend to keep things that way.
Yeah, it's such a shocking time, and you see all these protests going on, especially up in the Ivy League schools, and how it can very quickly get out of hand. I appreciate all that you guys are doing. As a last question, we're all judged by the legacy we leave, and this job is obviously going to be a huge part of your legacy. What do you want to see with the university long term prior to you finishing?
So I am very proud of the legacy I have received from my predecessors, and I do strongly believe this is a very profoundly held ethical principle for me, that when you are in a position of public responsibility, the University of Miami is a private university, but it has a public mission, and our responsibility is a public responsibility. When you are in that kind of position, your absolute obligation is to receive and protect the legacy that you have received from those who came before you and hand it enriched to those who come after you. And having that understanding that you are part of the development of an institution, that you are not the sole creator of the institution, and being able to understand the legacy you receive, protect it, and then make sure that what you hand to your successor is better than the way you received the institution. And that's what I'm focused. When I came here 8 years ago, I'm started now my 9th year, the university was already in a great place. And when we celebrate the 100th anniversary in 2025, we will acknowledge and celebrate and salute all of those presidents and deans and students and faculty members and staff members who came before us, sometimes in very, very difficult circumstances, and built the university that I was privileged to start leading in 2015. And I'm going to make sure that when we celebrate the centennial, we are not just celebrating the past 100 years, but we have laid the foundation for the second century of the university. And that's where our strategic plan is called Roadmap to Our New Century. Everything is about our new century. And the new century has to do with the priorities you asked me about before. That focus on a preeminent health system, on leading the educational revolution, on mission-driven research, that has got to be the way forward for the university in its second century and beyond.
Listen, President Frenk, what a terrific interview. As a faculty member here, it's very exciting to see the university grow, not only in the healthcare sector, but in every single avenue. And I think that the growth that we're seeing is secondary to leadership. Obviously, it starts at the top. And so you deserve a lot of kudos and respect for what you've done at the very top. And I think that that trickles down. I think your attitude for growth, and it's a very progressive vision, I think it's very contagious. So again, kudos for all you've done. The university is really skyrocketing. And it's very exciting to see what happens in the next 5, 10, 20 years.
Thank you very much. It is a team effort, and I'm very blessed to lead this team of incredibly talented and devoted people.
Wonderful.